Hello, everyone. How you doing today? We're going to get into the next lesson for this basic leadership development. I would say series that I'm working on. I guess that'd be the best way to put it. We've been working our way through strategic vision, how to work with your purpose, how to communicate, and today we're going to talk about what do you do when you're ready to start moving forward and taking that definitive and strategic action, right? You want definitive and strategic action, making sure that the time that you're using and the energy that you're expending is going to give you the results you're looking for. And you're hoping to ensure that the vision is going to become the reality, and you want to make sure that it's clear. Then you want to make sure that it's focused, and you want to make sure that you're executing in accordance with your values and the things that you're hoping to accomplish. Again, reminder, the vision has got to be powerful. You got to set the direction for the team, and they need to understand that no matter how powerful the vision is, you've got to get action done. I had a meeting this last week with a leader. Oh, really, he's a business owner, manager, and he has a conglomerate or a group of people that he's trying to kind of bring together to accomplish a certain goal. None of them work for him per se, but they're all independent leaders of their own businesses, but they're all choosing to come together to accomplish a certain goal. The problem is, not all of them are meeting the timelines, meeting the expectations. They're struggling to understand the concepts, and they're not applying themselves accordingly to understand where the concepts are trying to take them. And so he was frustrated with having to figure out the ways to communicate. And he was just asking, he's like, why is this so hard? And I just chuckled and I said, brother, that's leadership. Leadership is working to best not just communicate the vision, but to allow for everyone to play their role, to inspire everyone to want to play their role, to mentor them, to guide them, to push them, or to drive them to a completion, depending upon what the parameters are for your team. So just remember, you may have the best vision in the world. You may have the best idea, but if you're not able to get the action, if you're not able to get the thing done, then it just sounds good. And it's just a dream. And nothing comes to a dreamer but a dream. You got to get up and you got to make this happen. So the goal of today's lesson, video session, is to give you some of the recommendations of things that I've used throughout the past to find this success. Now, as a reminder, I'm not just telling you about all the years of experience that I got, which, I got a ton. 25 years in the Navy. Now I retired and working with the kids in the battalion. And that's really where I think my perspective is going to be the most valued. I didn't just stop leading people and to tell you how I used to do it. I am still actively not just leading future generations of leaders and developing them, but we have a very busy operational calendar, which I'm going to share with everybody over this year to show you the amount of events this team of over 180 students takes on throughout the year. And they execute a majority of it, but with people like me strategically guiding them and then helping to ensure we get it across the finish line. So leaders typically never take off their pack. We never stop doing the thing. At least, in my opinion, the best leaders. We just find ways to continue to share the information. And those are the people you want to look for. Because I want somebody that's going to mentor me that's continuing to find success. Okay. And we're looking for tangible success. We're looking for things you can quantify, you can qualify, and you can show me. And why strategic action matters. Why do we want to make sure our actions are strategic? It's simple, because it's exhausting. It is exhausting taking all of the actions that are going to be required to accomplish your goals. So you must be strategic with how you use your energy, your resources, your people, yourself, and understanding that the strategy of how you're going to do it is the leverage you need to accomplish the goal while not losing all other facets of your life, right? And the strategic action is the engine that's going to drive the progress for your overall organization. And here we go. I'm going to say this out loud. This is the out loud part. Step one, you've got to be able to make decisive choices. You've got to be able to choose. One of the things I work through with my cadets is I put them through iterations of opportunities where they must make choices quickly. There's always risk. There is time in life to assess things and really evaluate what you're doing. But there's also a lot of times when you just need to make a quick decision so people can move the ball forward. And if you are not comfortable making decisive choices, you need to work on that. You need to work on how you can best prepare to take some of that risk on and not be so uncomfortable. You need to look at how can you best coordinate the efforts of your organization. How can you best use the resources wisely and then align everybody to focus on the same thing, which is the end goal, the shared goal. And one of the most important things that I like to remind leaders is do not allow your team to get stuck on the things that divides them. It's pointless. We cannot allow for that to happen. We need to focus on the things that are going to unite our team, unify us, and make that professional boundary for us all. And let the things that are divisive in nature either A, come up quickly so we can resolve them quickly, B, get rid of the things that are causing divisiveness in the team decisively so there's no longer an issue, or C, stop talking about it in the workplace because none of us are here to worry about that. We're here to do this thing that we've all been brought here to do, which is ultimately why we're all choosing to spend the time together and receive financial income or financial compensation for our time. Okay. And without the shared goal, doesn't matter how bold your vision is, doesn't matter how exciting your vision is, the teams, they're going to struggle. They've got to share in the goal. They've got to not just share in the vision, but they've got to share in the work that's going to get you there. That's the bridge between what you're imagining and what we're actually achieving. That achievement is what's going to build momentum. It's going to build pride. It's going to build the things that make them continue to want to come to work every day because they're going to be excited about it. A few companies that, that I think from the corporate sector that have been very effective, taking big visions and turning them into something that really matters for the society, using strategic action. You've got Tesla. They took the idea of electric cars and made it into being freaking space trucks, whatever you call them, cyber trucks everywhere. I've got a Tesla charger in my garage of my house that I bought when I retired from the military. I don't drive a Tesla, but I got a Tesla charger in my garage. It means the people that lived here before me had a Tesla, and they're just that common on the roadway. When I was a kid, when a lot of us were children, we would have never thought that vehicles that were 100% electric would be that relevant in the marketplace. And through their vision, through their decisions to go after it, they have created a car company that is not only innovative, but is competitive across the United States of America. Now, let's talk about Amazon. And I remember when Amazon first started, and my wife said she wanted to get Amazon Prime. We were overseas at the time, living in Yokosuka, Japan, and she wanted to get Amazon Prime because it was free shipping on whatever the thing was. That was all it was about. It was about a shipping thing. It's now grown into movies and music and just all kinds of grocery shopping. I mean, the Amazon model has changed the world. Now, COVID, I think, also really opened up a lot of ideas and pathways for things of that nature. But customer centric, Amazon. It's all about what you want, and once you order it, they're going to bring it to you. They almost got more trucks, in my opinion, than like UPS. Or remember, I mean, you don't even see mail trucks anymore like you see Amazon trucks. They've managed to meet the customers where the customers are at, and they are continuously improving their processes. Okay, Microsoft. I think Microsoft and them are smart. But do you remember once upon a time there was a company named Dell? Where are they at? Right? Remember that? I remember when I was a young sailor, I wanted to buy a computer. I was a Navy recruiter, and I had never had a home computer. I'd been living on the ship for a couple of years. I was finally on shore duty, and I wanted a computer so I could get dial-up internet. The year was 2000, so I could get access to the internet at my house. I don't really know why I needed it. Back in those days, all it was about was email and Napster, right? Let's be honest. But I wanted it. And of course, my credit was so bad in those days that I went to the Microsoft store and they told me no. I went to the Dell store and they told me yes, and they gave me a computer for a payment plan, right? But somehow Microsoft just continued to grow, and Dell is gone. At least to the name Dell, they might be under another brand, but Microsoft has continued to empower people and every person or organization through their accessibility, through their different products, through Outlook, and that's a big one. Through their innovation in general, they are still a relevant company and they're making a lot of moves. Google. Google was the original AI, right? It was a search engine that organized everybody's information, and it typically there was two kinds of people in the world. This is almost like the Apple and what is it? Apple and the other phones. It's Apple and the other phones. Samsung or whatever it is, right? You're either a Google person or a Yahoo person. But Google has turned, I use Google for a lot of my workspace stuff. I use their AI capabilities. I use their email capabilities because they help me to manage it all across their entire workspace. Yahoo is just a web page, in my personal opinion. And that's a Microsoft thing too, I think, right? What are they doing? I don't know. But Google has completely elevated their entire brand. And of course, they're a part of much bigger things. Nike. You ever watch that movie about Michael Jordan and Nike and how they came up with the idea for the basketball shoe and worked to get him to be their ambassador or to be their spokesperson or to be their primary face of their brand? And they changed the entire athletic, they changed the entire fashion market, I believe, for the world. I mean, Nike Jordans are a fashionable trend that costs a lot of freaking money. And a lot of my students, a lot of adults will spend a lot of money to buy these shoes. I've watched adults have podcasts with whole walls of shoes behind them that are primarily one style or they're almost all Nikes. That was something that Nike changed, and they did that through their not just their teamwork, their branding, but also having a crazy vision and then taking definitive action, taking strategic, decisive action, and taking the risk. So, how do we work into actually making this happen? Number one, I'm going to tell you, you've got to have some goals that are specific. You've got to clearly define what it is you want to accomplish as an organization. And I am a believer in faith. I am a believer in prayer. I am a believer in intention. I'm a believer in focus. And so I tell people, I tell my students, I tell the people on my team, I express to them when I'm telling them the vision for our goals to accomplish something, I am telling it down to, I want you to be able to see it, touch it, taste it, feel it. I want to clearly define what we want to achieve, and I want you to understand it. And my favorite is when you can explain it back to me in your own words. That means you incorporated it, right? Now, anything worth doing in this lifetime, in my opinion, is worth measuring. Anything. If I have a plan, I want to track the completion of the plan. I want to ensure that I'm staying on the plan. And if I start getting drawn off the plan, I want to be able to catch that quickly and figure out why are we deviating, and do we either alter course or do we pull it back onto the course, and what lessons do we need to learn for how we got off course. That's one example. If I'm going to go to school, I'm going to get grades. If I'm going to get a job, I'm going to get paid. They're typically going to track my hours. If I'm doing something for a company where it's not an hourly thing, but I'm giving them a quote for an assessment or for a whole product of things, there's going to be measurements within that scope of work that's going to show them and tell them where I expect to be, when I expect to be, and when they can expect to hear from me, and what we're going to be talking about at those opportunities. every plan needs to not just have specific goals, specific targets, but measurements to track that you're on your way. And look, there's micro and there's macro, right? The micro means you're getting into the minutia, those details that are going to really, really matter to the day for day. But then there's also the macro, which is you're looking at the holistic, bigger picture and how multiple areas come together to accomplish these bigger wave tops. Both matter to the leader. Okay, both matter to. I would like to say that they matter to everybody on the team, but maybe some people only need to focus on the micro. Maybe some people only need to focus on the macro. It's been my experience that the team is the best when everybody has a good understanding of both, but then they also understand their areas of primary responsibility and they make it so simple. Okay, this right here is super important. And you heard me talk about these organizations that had outrageous goals. And I believe in outrageous goals. I love setting outrageous goals. I always want to challenge my team for where we can go with an outrageous goal. But for an outrageous goal, we've got to have, it's got to come to being, okay, it's outrageous, but is it achievable? And if it's achievable, even if we have to get a lot of things right, we need to make a plan that's realistic with our timeline and realistic with our manpower, realistic with our financial constraints. And we've got to be able to ensure that the things that we're going to do are not just they're not just realistic, but they're going to have to be relevant. Nothing is more disappointing to people than when they spend a lot of time working to accomplish something only to find out that the thing they're working on isn't really a factor. That's just a waste of their time. And they start to wonder, why am I even a part of this team if the assignment that I'm given, my part to play, is not even relevant to the completion of an objective? Or it's not, which is one of the reasons I think it's important that everybody understands how their part connects. Is I've seen this. We would do shipyards, the George Washington, when I was on the aircraft carrier. Every year we would do a maintenance availability for about 4 to 5 months every year. So when I was on the ship for 3 years, I not only had to do 3 training cycles, one every year with the certification phase, not just deployments every year because it's a forward deployed aircraft carrier, but every year we would do a yard period for 4 to 5 months. And that yard period would be packed. We would have production meetings morning and evening. We'd have meetings for meetings. The thing was, you would have to be able to identify every goal your part of the team had. I would run typically the watertight door team, the damage control zone. I had a lot to do with that organization, that maintenance action, that maintenance time period, plus the training of the crew, so we didn't lose too much of our abilities in order to maintain our certification as we came out of the yards. And everything we did had to directly connect to the larger objectives. And if it didn't, why are we doing it? And I think that's important for leaders to understand, that the things that your people need to be doing should be relevant and align with your vision and with your priorities. Heard a story the other day, and I've seen this myself a lot of times in real life. This story was a good analogy of this conversation, and it was essentially a person on a team was being told to do something that they felt was directly in violation of the organization's vision or the organization's priorities. And so the person challenged the management leader and said, "Hey, look, I don't want to do that because I think it's directly in violation of our ethics, of our values, of our vision." And was basically told, "We don't care, get it done." And that person chose to no longer work at that organization because their personal values and priorities and visionary ethics aligned with the businesses, or so they thought. Then something happened. That's a problem for organizations when they start doing things that are contrary to what they told the people were the priorities. Just remember that. So make sure that whatever plan you're going to set up, that it is aligned with your team. Now, next up, it's got to have a time period, y'all. I am a fan of if there is no set time period or time constraint being put on me, then I will let typically my follower or my team member pick the due date. So, for example, we were working for Returning to School right after Ocala Inspired, right? So, Ocala Inspired is on July 25th, where it's going to be a fun time. And as a matter of fact, we're about to wrap up tickets for that event because we're pretty much almost full, right? Now, right after that, I go right into freshman orientation, returning staff training for the Knights Battalion, and then getting ready for the first day of school. And then I'm deployed. School starts, and away we go. And so we have got some things we want to do as a part of our ops plan to start the school year off on the right foot. And it's a marketing strategy, it's a communication plan. There's a bunch of different things for the events that we're going to be doing before the school year even starts up into the first day of school. So the cadet commanding officer contacted me, and she was basically saying, here's all the things that we think we want to have for you. And I said, great, when? And it was like question mark, like, what do you mean when? Like, when are you going to have them for me? Don't just tell me you're going to have something for me, and then I'm just hoping that it's going to come. I kind of want to know, when are you going to have it for me? Why do I think I want to know that? Because I understand at a higher level what some of the areas of concern may come up as we get closer to the deadlines of actual execution. So I want to know, I want all of the information they're going to provide me. It sounds great. When are you going to get it to me? I'm not telling you when I want it, even though after she gave me her first date for deliverability, that wasn't good enough for me. And so I countered. That's how it goes. Okay, your senior leadership can just give you the deadline, or you can propose the deadline. One other piece of advice that I have is purposefully, I always try to get things done as efficiently but quickly as possible. I just don't like having delayed deadlines that possibly you're going to get brought up into something else. The sooner I can meet that objective, get it off my plate, and then take that information that I got the approval on and then use it in other things, the better, right? If you ever give me an opportunity and you give me 3 different dates and say, when would you want it? I'm almost always going to pick the first date. That way I know there's other dates to punt to if I have to. Another one of my tendencies, though, or my lessons learned, is that if you ever come to me and you want to miss a deadline or you want to reschedule something, I am really, really thinking about, why are we even doing it, and why are we not just canceling it? Because if you can't meet my deadline or the deadline that we approved, that we decided upon, or you want me to reschedule something, it must not have been a priority. It must not be that important. And I think we should just reschedule. I will tell you, I have learned that curbs a lot of that crap, because people typically don't want to lose the opportunity that they're working for. And they're typically just either afraid that they're not ready, or they're nervous, or whatever it is. And what you got to get across to them is, it's better to come to me with the majority right, and come in with the questions you don't have answers for yet, so we can just figure it out and then assign maybe a new deadline, or you make your recommendations to get rid of it, and then we work from there. Okay. But definitely want to look for, I think time should not be just never ending. Your time is valuable. Your time is important. And you need to understand that your people need to understand that a sense of urgency is going to be what's required. And I think we all must have a sense of urgency. Also, I think you need to take these goals into consideration to ensure that the mission is clear and that everybody is focused on the right things. Hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions, I would love for comments. I would love for any questions. Send them. I'll answer for you. Now, next up, how do you build action plans? Okay, well, you're going to create detailed action plans that are going to have subsidiary points that are all going to be folding up into realistic goals. So you want to break the goals into manageable tasks, and then you're going to assign the responsibilities to a person. Not multiple people either. That's just my personal opinion. One person. not multiple people, because then you get people start blaming each other for whatever the reason was and why they failed to meet the objective. Nope, give it to one person. Now you can have multiple people on the team working for multiple tasks. And here's the thing, and I've learned this so many times throughout my career, you're going to need somebody that's ensuring coordination is happening. Because if I've got 20 people on my team and I've got 3,000 tasks and I divide it between the 20 people, I've got to ensure there is somebody holistically looking at the plan, identifying areas of overlap, and working to ensure that when these conflicts are coming, that we're ready to diffuse them quickly, or we can make either rules for the road for how they're going to handle the conflict so they already know, use this checklist, or what's the process that they get this conflict resolved so it's not emotional and everybody can move forward. That on those level of projects, on that level of a team, those kinds of people are going to matter. You're going to need people that are managing the timeline, making sure that everybody's meeting their deadlines, and making sure that they're what they've committed to is realistic. If it's not realistic, someone needs to call it out. Someone needs to call it out. And then, okay, what about it is not realistic? Is it because you need more resources? Is it because, do you need more people? Do you need more money? What about it is not realistic? Or are we just not managing our time effectively? And that might be the true statement. And then we got to have an uncomfortable conversation. But I would much rather have an uncomfortable conversation and get them back squared away so they can finish the job, vice the uncomfortable conversation where they no longer work on that team because they're just not pulling their weight. Okay. We want to make sure that everything we're doing again is aligned with the principles for the end goal, for the team, for the organization. You do not want people to start feeling like they've got to make things work that are in violation. Okay. And how are you going to do that? My advice, you're going to prioritize effectively. Okay. What are the priorities? How can we get them figured out? If I've got 3,000 objectives and I've got 20 people on the team figuring it out, how can we do the prioritization scale? We used to do fishbone charts. We used to do a few different things. I'm going to go through a few of them here in case you've never done large project management prioritization. And you can use these tools for almost anything. Okay. You've got to understand, you've only got so much attention. You've only got so much ability to stay on track. And then you've got to constantly manage burnout and fatigue of the people or the organization. Okay. So prioritization is going to help you be able to understand what's the realistic end result for today, for the week, for the month, and how does it all cascade into a final product, into a finished product. Again, these techniques that I'm about to share with you, they've worked in lots of other places. I have used them, and you need to understand that coming into the job field or into the project, all of them should be on the table. Okay, so first up, you got the Eisenhower method. This is named after President Dwight D. Eisenhower. Okay, and you're going to do a 2x2 grid. So you're going to have essentially 4 sections on a page. Okay, you're going to have 2 factors that you're going to separate things on, and that's going to be their urgency, how soon it needs to be done. Okay, and then how important is it that this thing gets done? Okay, so for urgency is how soon it needs to be done and the importance. And then the next thing it's going to be is how much does this thing contribute to the long-term goals of the organization? Okay, so that's the first 2 blocks for urgency. Then once you have those 2 categories for everything is in those 2 categories, right? Everything is in those 2 categories. What are the urgency levels? Now you're going to put them into the 4 quadrants. You've got the urgencies figured out. Now we're going to look at, okay, one quadrant should be it's urgent and it's important. These are things that are like freaking, it's a fire. It is a serious problem. If we don't meet this deadline, it's going to trip a red line. It's going to call an all stop. It's going to cause us to not meet the objectives. It's urgent and it's important and it's got to be put in their own section. So you could track those daily, probably, if not hourly, depending upon yourself. And typically, I would advise you're going to do a lot of those yourself or directly under your control, because those are no-fail missions. Okay. Next up is going to be, they're important, but they're not timely. They're not urgent. It's not something you've got to get done today, tomorrow. Okay. They're going to be great for future planning. They're going to be great for future opportunities or skill building, but they're not really what you should be, for you or a lot of your team members should be focusing on every day. Okay. So what you want to do is you want to schedule them for focused periods of time in the future. And here's the thing with those, you have got to allocate the resources for them so that when you do get to them, you're ready to do them. Nothing is worse than when you recognize something is important, but it's not urgent, but then they don't do due diligence and to verify that they have all the parts or they have all the tools or they have all the training or whatever it is. That's a failure in management, I believe. Next up is urgent. Something needs to be done quickly, but it's not important. Okay. These are time sucks. They demand attention, but they're not really contributing to the vision. Okay. And yeah, I mean, you're going to ask yourself, like, why are we doing this? Why are these on my plate? Why are these in my organizational window? Why are these coming up? Delegate these, get these off your plate as fast as freaking possible, and delegate them to people that can take care of them. They're timely, but they're not really what you need to be focused on because they're not contributing to the overall mission. Now, the last one are going to be things that they're not really urgent. There's no sense of urgency. And look, I believe when it comes to the business of your thing, your team, your vision, everything has a sense of urgency because time is ticking. The clock is running. The ball is moving. The thing never ends. Strategically, I like to pause when I chill or when I take a break, when I go on vacation or whatever it is. But then I've got other people running the clock. I come from the world of the United States Navy where we are always running. Somebody's always on watch 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 or and that's just how it is. And so you got to make sure that your team understands that your sense of urgency is that we are going to get things done. Okay. So when you come across these things that are left over, they're not urgent and they're not important. These are distractions. Like, why are these on my plate today? Can I eliminate it? Period. I'm not a fan of postponing it. I'm really not. I'm really, really not. If you're going to tell me we should postpone it, I'm going to tell you we should cancel it. Prove me wrong. Somebody can bring it back up to us in the future, but it's dead to me today. Drag it behind the freaking shed and shoot it. Game over. Because it just saves you from having to do the staff work or having to do the real work later, having the same conversation over again. If it gets reintroduced to me or to the organization under a different lens, great. Okay. Now that you've got these 4 categories set up, it's going to help you to understand the priorities and areas to focus your energy and your time. Okay. Helps you to get out of the urgency trap. And, I remember telling people that I worked for, hey, boss, if everything is a freaking crisis, nothing's a crisis. If everything is urgent, nothing is urgent. So while, yes, I want you to have a sense of urgency, I want you to focus that energy on the things that really deserve that energy. Okay? And having that as a system so that you have a quick way to parcel things out as you're figuring out who's going to do what. And then you can invest in that training for your people so everybody understands how they can use that same process as well at their level, and everyone's going to find success. Okay. Next up is called the ABC method, right? It is essentially, we're going to assign letters to things that we're going to figure out what category the letters are going to matter to. And then we're going to parcel everything into the different letters or codes. This is a method brought up by Mr. Brian Tracy. He's a productivity expert. And step 1, we're listing all the tasks. Okay, we're going to list all the tasks for the program, for the plan, for the day, for the week. And then we're going to assign each one a letter based on its value and the consequences if we don't achieve it on time, A's are going to be must-do tasks. They got to get done with serious consequences if we ignore them. They've got to have key deadlines. If they have key deadlines, my advice, get them done early. That's just my advice. Tackle these first and do not lose track of them. And if you have multiple letter A's, number them. So you got, A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, and all of those are a mission fail if we don't accomplish them on time. Okay. B or Bravo. These are should do's. They got mild consequences. You want to make sure that if they're delayed, they're going to affect your routine things, or they're going to be challenges to your routine. You only get to do B's typically after the A's are done. Okay. You only get to do B's after the A's are done. Handle all the A's first. A's are what you're making your money on. A's are going to keep you out of jail. B's are going to be nice to haves once you get there. C's are really the nice to do tasks, no real consequence. And really, if you've got people that are doing nothing, or if you've got some real free time, maybe you pull out that list of C objectives and you figure out if you want to knock some of those out. And they're typically going to be things that, while they're good, they're not really going to affect the program that you're probably working on right now. Don't overly worry about it. Remember, focus on the A's, then get after the B's. You might even have D's. Again, these are things you can delegate to somebody else. I am a huge fan of delegation, and delegation requires practice and requires trust. It requires practice for you to delegate, and it requires practice for the person receiving the delegation to acknowledge it, to accept it, and to achieve it. It also requires trust, which is scary. It is. You've got to trust somebody else with you can't, one of the things I learned in the Navy is I can delegate responsibility. Oh, actually, no, I can delegate, hold on. I can delegate authority to do something. I can delegate accountability to do something. I really can't delegate responsibility. Now, I can hold you accountable for failing to meet your mark if you work for me, but ultimately, whatever you were supposed to do, I was supposed to do too, because you were working for me and I was responsible to getting it done. So if I let you cause me to meet the mark because I was improperly managing you, that's my bad. Right? And so I learned that when I was going through third class petty officer leadership training in like 1999. And it's still true to this day. Responsibility, authority, and accountability. Again, you can delegate authority and accountability, but you cannot delegate the responsibility. Ultimately, it's going to look bad on you if you don't meet it. But I would delegate as much as humanly possible, provided your people have trained. They've been trained on how to do it. They understand how to communicate for more help or to communicate any concerns, and they understand how to best report when things are done or when there are concerns. But the more you delegate, the more that they're finding proficiencies, the more you're going to have strong leaders in your organization that will help you, and then you can free yourself up to focus on the A things because you're delegating the D things. Things that are E's, get rid of them. If they're still left on your list, get rid of them. They just don't have any value. And you just need to quit making lists that long. I'm just being honest with you, because there's always bigger things coming. And at some point, you've got to stop allowing yourself to just generate so much work. Okay. Now, you do got to rank ruthlessly. You've got to rank strategically. You've got to ensure that B's are not started until A's are done. And you've got to ensure that things that are A's are actually called out as A's. And don't let them be put in the B role. Otherwise, you might get screwed later if you're going to use this area of, I would say, prioritization, or this method of prioritization. Okay. Last one for today's lesson is going to be the Pareto principle. And the Pareto principle is a very interesting math problem because it's the 80-20 rule. Okay. And it's named after economist named Vilfredo Pareto. Okay, and he observes that in many situations, 80% of the situations, probably normally the most of them, 80% of the results come from about 20% of the effort or the work. So what you need to verify is that you are ensuring that that 20% that's the most critical is a priority. Okay? So for example, 80% of your team's productivity might come from 20% of your team, right? Or from 20% of the tasks, or 80% of the job completion may come from 20% of the organization. Again, I want you to understand that you only get 100% of anything, okay? And depending upon what's causing a problem, you typically, again, you have the 80%. If you've got problems like customer complaints, 80% of those customer complaints will probably come from 20% of your issues. Okay. So then when it comes to leadership, this is going to remind you to work to identify and double down on that 20% that's vital. Don't overly worry about 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90% of the program or the project management. Focus on that top 20% or that important 20%, and the rest of it's probably going to work itself out. Does that make sense? And that's the idea there. And that helps when you're load shedding. Load shedding is in the middle. So when I was in the Navy, I was an engineer for a good 16 years of my career before I became a command master chief. And when I was standing watching the pit, we had a guy who was an electrician. He was called the electrician mate of the watch. And his job was, if we started having problems in the main space with electrical, he was going to start load shedding, which is shutting things off that were drawing electricity out of our electrical distribution system until we figured things out. It's called load shedding. I like to load shed when we're having a hard time to achieve our goals. I'll start cutting things away that are just distractions until we can figure out what's the problem. Okay, start load shedding. And then once we cut it all off, we can figure out, do we want to bring it back on? Do we want to get rid of it? Do we want to pause it? Whatever. Okay. You do want to understand that whatever process you're going to use, you need to train your people on the process. Okay, you've got to have this training so everyone understands the methods that you're going to be using, so they can understand how to best recognize what's going on and they can support the overall team. Okay, I see a lot of leaders want to do these kinds of policies, but they don't ever train people on them, or they don't figure out what's the best style for your team. That's the reality. I used to tell people when I was an assessor for a float training group, San Diego, and I'll say it even now, I can go on any ship in the Navy, and if you show me a surface ship, if you show me a general quarters, which is a full drill of the ship's battle stations, start to finish, to include all the training team briefs and debriefs. If you show me a zone inspection, and you show me a DCPO training, you show me those three things, I will be able to give you a pretty good understanding of what I believe the command culture is for that ship. Those are the only three things that I need, right? And what I've learned, especially as I was going around assessing ships, is there are multiple ways to do those three things. They can all be done differently. There's not just one way to do it. But the ships that were doing it their way effectively were the ships that were successful. It's the same way in every organization in the world. No one's going to run your team exactly the way you're running your team. What you need to figure out with your people is how's the best way for you guys to do your thing. Period. Right? We're not robots. People are not robots. We've all got idiosyncrasies. We've all got areas to improve. And so we've got to look for ways in which we can continuously synthesize and coalesce the organization together. And oh, by the way, you can always mix things around. You can make make it all, you can make it work. I promise you. That's the fun part about leadership, is you get to work with your people to figure out how to essentially make this work to the good of our organization, and you get buy-in. Okay. And ultimately you're using the vision as your North Star. Found what works for your team, stay focused, and you guys keep working it. Now, next up, you've got to mobilize and train your people or your resources. There's a lot of different resources in this world, but the most important resources are going to be your people, because they're going, or your people and your tech, right? And they've got to understand the parameters and the responsibilities and the requirements and the expectations. Okay. And you got money, people, technology. Those are the three resources that are typically going to be the top of your timeline. And you have to understand, mobilize what you need, allocate it wisely, invest in training, invest time in training. Promise you, invest that time up front. It will pay off dividends at the end. Identify skill gaps. Look for areas that you have holes. Offer learning opportunities to develop people so they can continue to grow and to become developed and hopefully have more buy-in to the organization. And look to build a culture of people, a culture of your team that wants to continue growing. We're humans. We are like plants. We are meant to grow. Give them somewhere to grow, and they'll probably continue to keep bringing you back fruit. Make them feel like they're not valued. Don't give them sunlight or water. You're probably going to start to wonder why they're not producing you results. It's just that simple. Okay. It really is. Uh, the next step is you've got to monitor this whole thing and make adjustments. Once you act, track the progress, use your key performance indicators, use those measurements like we discussed, get the feedback from your people, make adjustments. If you recognize roadblocks are coming, remember I said you got that person whose job it is to be coordinating, looking for areas of conflict and resolving the conflicts, or teeing up the conversations to handle the roadblocks. And when you see the roadblocks coming, get ready to blast them out of the water so it can not be an impediment to progression. Be ready to adapt, because the opposition always gets a vote. My number one opposition typically in this conversation will almost always be time, or it's going to be a resource constraint. It's going to be time, money, people, tech, or parts, right? It's what it's going to be. It's going to be one of those four things. And the time is usually being driven by the money, the people, or the technology, or the parts and materials. You got to be ready to adapt. Okay. Strategic action is not linear. It's not perfect. It's not going to just be down the same line every day. It is about constantly improving your processes. And it's one of my favorite parts about doing the thing. Okay. Anything. I love the strategic critical thinking and working to support the team as we deal with what comes up to prevent us from achieving our goals while we're working our plans. You have to communicate clearly. Communication is going to keep everybody aligned. It's going to keep everybody focused on where we're going. They need to understand, what are the rules to communication? What's the battle rhythm? What's the drum beat? How do you want them to share progress? How do you want them to share challenges? How do you want them to discuss changes? How are you going to discuss changes with the stakeholders or the people that have a vested interest in your organization getting this thing across the finish line? And my advice is, use multiple channels as long as they work. Be transparent. Don't, if you're overthinking the communication, you're probably a problem. My advice. Be authentic, be transparent, but don't overthink it, because you're just going to come out looking manipulating at that point. I know there's people that go to college to fully understand how to properly communicate. Got it. I think we've seen recently presidential elections where people failed because they were trying too hard to be expert communicators instead of just being an authentic communicator. Be authentic. Say what you got to say. Mean what you say. Let it stand, and wait for feedback, right? Clear communication is going to build the momentum. People need to know what you want. They need to know what your concerns are, and they need answers to their questions. Empower your people. Give them the opportunity. Give them the space to take the energy that you've given them. You delegate the authority. You delegate the accountability. Tell them this is your opportunity. And when they come back, give them all the recognition. Okay, that's my advice. Give them all the shine. We all win if we don't care who gets the credit, man. It's huge. Delegating effectively, a big part of that's going to be in recognition. Offer support to them, but encourage initiative. You want them to be innovative. Now, I also want you to get the job done. So don't give me 12 different ways you could do it. Give me 2 or 3 choices, okay? And then we'll make a decision and away we go. And I will tell you my advice for anyone who's briefing up chain or to leadership, if I've got to give 2 or 3 things, there's typically going to be the thing I want to do. This is my first choice. There's my second choice. Then there's going to be one that's just completely out of the box. No way they're going to ever pick this one. We call that the throwaway COA, right? Or COA in the Navy is called the course of adjustment, or the course of what we're going to be taking action on, the course that we're working towards. So these are our 3 COAs. One is a throwaway, one is what I want to do, and one is a maybe runner-up number 2. That way the decision maker doesn't have to figure out a whole bunch of things. The decision maker should recognize very quickly, okay, this is the throwaway. That's gone. Here's the 2 that they want. Hey, which one do you want? I almost always will default on what my person wants. Almost always. Because all 3 are theoretically going to get me where I want to get done. It shouldn't even have been brought up to me if you couldn't finish the job on time, or if there was some sort of out-of-the-box thing. Okay, so my question is, which one do you want? I want A. Cool, you got A. How long is it going to take you to get A done? And away we go. And give them the ownership, give them the accountability, and tell them this is their part to run. If they need anything, let me know, let you know, and away they go. Okay, by empowering your people, you are going to multiply your impact, and you're going to free yourself up to empower other parts. Okay, now, here's another thing that I've seen, not just in the military, not just in the school, but in the civilian sector. And this is collaboration is not always willingly accepted. People want to have things kind of stovepiped in their different chimneys, and you've got to figure out the way to get them to work together. Okay, a couple different ways to do that. Number 1, open communication. They've got to be able to understand they can trust one another. Again, we all can win if we don't care who gets the credit. We're going to bring a whole bunch of different skills to the conversation. How can we share that information with someone, what they have going for themselves, so they can best know who to ask for help? We want them to understand that collaboration is going to take individual efforts and make it into a collective success. Another thing for me is when I want collaboration, I will purposefully put people into teams, typically with a leader and a support, and I want them to figure out how to make something work. Another step is I want you to celebrate. I want you to celebrate and learn. Celebrate the wins. Recognize achievements. Show everybody the production that was made today and give them kudos for the people that got it done. However you're going to make that look. And then when you don't meet your mark, when something's less than best, when something's not met your expectations, let's learn from it quickly. And then let's figure out how can we ensure that this doesn't happen again. How can we implement things to change into our processes or into our policies or into our upcoming other areas that are similar, so that we don't keep making the same mistake over and over again. You do not want to be insane when you're running your organization. Okay, analyze the setbacks, allow them to grow stronger. Don't do it in a method to find the blame. And people need to understand it's not about finding the blame, but if you did something wrong, you're going to be held accountable. Simple. It's not personal, man. It's not personal. It's professional. Okay, and you want to have a culture of learning within your team that's going to drive the long-term success for the entire organization. Keep the focus on the vision. Okay, keep the focus on the end result. Keep the focus on the team. understanding the vision and the end result. And you want them to understand that's what they're working towards every day. Whether we're working, I mean, it's got to be, and it's typically a pretty big vision. Okay, it is the North Star for what you're working towards, and we say that because it's never ending. This whole thing is never ending, and it's okay. Life is a journey. We all should be working to enjoy it to the best of our ability. Hopefully, I added some tools to your tool belt. Hopefully, I gave you some ideas of things that uh, I've used that was effective, and maybe you could incorporate some of that in your world. It's okay if you know everything that I just said. That's great. That means you're already awesome at certain things, and I appreciate that. I'm practicing this whole thing, creating these videos, and we'll see where it all goes. But I just want to share the things that have worked for me, and I want you to have the ability to leverage me and my experience to help yourself be better as you work to figure out your clarity, your focus, and how you're going to relentlessly execute, you know, the things within your organization. Huge. Look to embrace those principles, and you're going to lead your teams to remarkable results. I'm sure you guys are going to find wins everywhere. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present for you today. I appreciate y'all. Thank you, and I will see y'all later. Bye.